This Fleet Equipment Unscripted interview is presented by Hendrickson, a leading manufacturer of heavy-duty suspension systems and components to the global commercial transportation industry. Visit hendrickson-intl.com to learn more.
Hi everyone, Jason Morgan, Content Director for Fleet Equipment. Welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. I am still at ACT Expo, and I'm with Daimler Truck North America. They launched the Freightliner E-Cascadia production series here. We are going to talk with Rakesh Aneja on the details of the truck. We're going to get an inside look, maybe look under the hood, and talk about the Class 8 electric truck as it rolls out into the market. So come along and let's see what we can learn.
And a proud moment for us, rolling out and unveiling our production eCascadia.
Right.
This is, internally we would call it Generation 2.
Okay.
It's built on the Generation 1 experience,
right,
which I think you're familiar with,
yep.
But we've had 40 different trucks with 50 different customers approximately. 1 million miles of collective experience.
Right.
And that's something very unique for us. In a traditional diesel program, we would give the trucks way later in the development stage as a customer demo unit. In this case, the customers are integrated in the journey right from day one.
Yep.
So essentially, they tested it with us, right? Normally we say we test for the customers. In this case, the customers tested with us.
Right.
All of that experience from a design input perspective as well as from an ecosystem perspective, driver feedback, all of those learnings, along with our traditional validation program, went into Generation 2.
Well, let's take a look, because I haven't seen under the hood yet, so this is very cool.
Yeah, so this is essentially the integration of all the accessories and the coolant circuits and everything in the front box area, traditionally where the engine compartment would sit.
Right.
And one of the big things in general on this was integration.
Right.
Compared to Gen 1, where also, we had excellent feedback from our customers, but this is taking it to the next level. So making sure we can use global components, that's something I want to talk about a little bit. It's a strategy we've used very successfully in our diesel world as well, and I've spent 20 years on the diesel powertrain side. I personally call it global, as global as possible, as local as necessary.
Yeah.
And that gives us scale. And from an engineering and validation perspective, we don't have to, solve the same issue in multiple regions. We find it in one region,
right,
we sort of solve it there, and the other regions benefit from it.
Right.
So with Generation 1, we had a certain starting point. With Generation 2, we have taken the next step forward in terms of increasing integration from a captive perspective. Mm-hmm. So this uses Detroit e-axle, for example. We've taken the next level from an integration perspective as well. And our European program was launched a few months back, so we benefited from those. Both programs were running in synergy. We talk a lot about the 1 million miles here locally in North America, but when you take a look at the global experience, it's upwards of 6 million miles is one example.
Well, and tell me a little bit about how much, I guess, the truck operation and efficiency is impacted by integration. Because I think the industry, and not you all specifically, but the industry, we tend to gloss over like, oh, it's an e-axle, it's a battery pack, and then you start to wonder, well, how different are all the trucks that are coming out? Like, how much work goes into that integration?
I think that is something that cannot be overemphasized. The importance of integration is so significant, and you can really treat it like an onion, right? Every layer you peel and you build, it just makes the integration more and more robust. So I'm going to start with something very fundamental and core, and we can go all the way outward, so to say. But let's start with efficiency, for example, right? In a traditional diesel vehicle, about 30% of the energy goes out the exhaust. Mm-hmm. In a battery electric vehicle, that's not the case. Mm-hmm. So as one example, the importance of aerodynamics is even higher for a battery electric vehicle than it is for a diesel vehicle, because of how the energy gets used, if you look at the energy balance.
Okay.
So that's one example of how integration comes in. And every efficiency improvement we can provide, either through aerodynamics or battery management system or e-axle efficiency, directly impacts range.
Right.
How well you recover energy from the system from an energy recuperation perspective directly impacts range. And it goes beyond, it's not like, 5 more miles of range or 10 more miles of range. if you're targeting a particular application and if you're not very efficient, you will have to add extra kilowatt hours from an energy capacity perspective. That's weight, that's cost. So that's just at a very fundamental level how important efficiency is.
Right.
And then this particular truck is based on our flagship Cascadia. It's benefited from all of the Cascadia features, whether it's ergonomics for the driver. If you take a look inside the cab, if you want to step in a few minutes, we can do that. The layout exactly is similar to the Cascadia, plus enhanced features for e-mobility.
Yep.
Then you have safety features on top.
Right.
So it's benefiting from our current Detroit Assurance Suite, and we are adding new safety features from an integration perspective. So active lane assist is one, which comes now standard with the eCascadia.
Right.
We are debuting a new feature, active side guard assist as well, industry first.
Yep.
That's another sort of integration layer. And then finally, connectivity, right? Yeah, so it's really the trifecta of integration with basically core e-mobility features and safety on top and connectivity on top. And that's, I would say, at the vehicle level.
Right.
And then we can take integration to the next level, which is the ecosystem.
Right.
And that was probably the number one learning from our innovation fleet, that the charging events have to be seamless for the customer and the driver. You want to take the truck out in the morning to do your business job, and if the truck's not ready, failure to charge or whatever, that obviously is not acceptable.
Right.
And initially when we start on the journey, maybe the vehicle's gone through a software update, it's a prototype vehicle, or the charger's gone through a software update, maybe they're not communicating with each other. And we didn't want our customers to be in this situation where is it a vehicle issue, is it a charger issue,
Right.
is it software, is it hardware, who should I call? And that's one reason why we really stepped into the ecosystem space. We wanted to be that single point of contact, the single point of support for our customers, and help them as much as possible.
Yeah.
So that, to me, is the next layer of integration here. We stepped into our Detroit e-fill chargers.
Yeah, super cool.
As well as the whole consulting piece of the business as well.
Right.
Because it can be really daunting for a customer. Right? How do you even start? Where do you even begin? So when I talked about the innovation fleet with experience with 40 different trucks.
Yep.
Our team's gone through maybe 20 plus deployments. We've learned a lot from that exercise.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And we want to share that with our customers. So we have, at the very rudimentary level, we have what we call as best practices from those deployments, which we are happy to share with anyone. It's essentially a free service.
Right.
And then as it gets more sophisticated, site-specific, we have what we call, as an example, a mega line package. That, if you're talking a fleet of vehicles, really dealing with topics like how to do on-site generation, distributed energy,
Right.
on-site storage as well. Is that the best trade-off for the customer? Do that initial capital expenditure, but it really pays off from an energy cost and an operating cost in the long term.
Right. Well, and you all have done that yourselves. We saw the electric island. We got a cool video look at it not too long ago and a walk around there. So you've put your own infrastructure in.
Right.
You've been through those, jumped over those hurdles, so to speak, to do it.
We are firm believers in, the best learning happens when you do it yourself, right? It's not even, I remember an old TOS principle of look and see. That goes to a certain extent, but at some point you got to do it yourself. Right. And we are grateful for our partnership with our local utility, Portland General Electric. And doing the electric island, we learned a lot. What does it take to do a public infrastructure site? What does the site look like? And using that experience along with the other customer deployments I talked about in shaping our consulting service today.
Right. Very cool. Very cool. And I liked your earlier point on the aerodynamics impacting range. It's not so different from how we talk about it now in terms of miles per gallon with diesel. The principles are still the same. You're getting, what do you guys say now, typical range, right? It's typical range of 230 on a class, this is a Class 8 configuration, right? So 230, typical range on Class 8.
Right.
All those aerodynamic and efficiency things that we know from the diesel world translate. It translates. It's not so different. There are differences, but there's some foothold there that I can kind of live in.
Yeah, and the reason we've started using typical range is because it's like an absolute miles per gallon, right?
Right.
From a diesel perspective, normally we talk delta from generation to generation.
Right.
It's a little bit easier because you have hundreds of thousands of vehicles in data. You can do a controlled test with a previous generation as your baseline,
right,
and then say the next improvement brings me, 3.4%
right,
from an engine. And we track that to 0.1%. Our simulation and testing methods have become very sophisticated and controlled. We can really explain what makes up the 3.4%, and if we fall short or if we go higher, where the difference comes from. But it's very difficult to talk about absolute miles per gallon,
right,
because that depends on weather,
right,
load, driver behavior, and we are in the infancy of the journey, and that's why predicting an absolute
yeah, it's kind of unfair
range,
for us to ask.
right?
Give me one number on range that encompasses everything.
But here is, again, it's like learning by doing.
Yeah.
So what we did, or what we had, again, referring back to Generation 1, million miles worth of data with our customers, we have plotted that million miles worth of data from an efficiency and range perspective. Then we looked at the Gen 2 improvements,
right,
in terms of efficiency and battery energy capacity, and we were able to extrapolate.
Right.
So for those type of applications, we say a typical range, sort of the middle
right,
point of that curve, would be 230, let's say. And in some cases it could be higher, in some cases it could be lower, and we will work with our customers to sort of figure that out.
Right. No, and I mean, your point on the diesel is well taken, because, it's the same on the fuel expenditure on the diesel. And that's why, fleets have been speccing the way they've been speccing trucks forever, and the technology has been increasing. Again, some similar lessons over here on electric. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Very cool to get a look at it.
My pleasure. Thank you.